You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest Robin Kelly, who's running in the 2nd Congressional District Democratic primary. That is the election to replace Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., who resigned in November. So on February 26th, the Democrats will choose their nominee. And as we have in the United States, the Republicans will choose their nominee. And Robin's running against, at this point, would it be 15 other candidates, 16
Yes,
total
15.
in the Democratic primary?
15.
Okay, and well, we'll go back to the race, and we'll go back to all of this stuff. But I think what you want to do, if you're watching this show, you're watching Public Affairs, you want to get a sense of who Robin Kelly is. And so the best way to get a sense of that is to pick a hot issue, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about guns.
Okay.
All right, so we had these shootings in Connecticut, okay? We have these shootings in Chicago. More recently, a shooting of a young girl, 15 years old, something like that. Very sad, very tragic. Perfectly good person, doing nothing wrong. Somebody was a mistaken identity. Somebody thought she or this group she was with had something to do with gangs, nothing to do with gangs. So a random shooting in a sense.
Oh, definitely.
And it happens in Chicago. The shootings in Connecticut, they don't happen so frequently, but 28 people were killed. What's the solution, Robin Kelly? Is it more of what Barack Obama, and you know something about Barack Obama because we were talking, you helped encourage him to run for the U.S. Senate. You could tell he might be president of the United States. He had a certain savoir-faire. I knew I'd mispronounce that. He did? He's a certain style to the man, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely. You know, I think the problem is multifaceted. There's been many mass murders, not just Newtown, but Aurora, Columbine, NIU, Wisconsin. They're not isolated incidences anymore, and then it seems like every day on the streets of Chicago, but not just Chicago. So I do think we need to do what the president is talking about. I think we need more access to mental health facilities. I think we need more after-school programs. People need jobs. I think it's a combination of things, but definitely I support what the president wants to do. I do feel
What does he want to do?
He wants to ban on assault weapons, universal background checks. It's really conceal and carry. I mean, we're the only state that doesn't have it, but it looks like we're going to have it. But I hope we have the most watered down version of it that we can, and then banning the high capacity magazines is the other issue. Now,
In Connecticut, you said also do more to help the mentally ill, right? That would probably be most relevant because many of these shootings, these mass shootings, we'll get to Chicago, it's a separate issue. The sort of daily shootings we have, not as in D-A-L-E-Y, but D-A-I-L-Y, you know, the large number of killings that go on in Chicago, we should talk about that. But starting out with Connecticut, 28 people were killed. Okay, killing in Colorado. It seems like what many of those mass murders have in common, the guy or the woman, it's usually a guy who does these killings, kind of bonkers, right?
Well, that's what it seems like for a number of them. But when you think about Columbine, anyone
they were
that
sort
does
of bonkers.
that,
They were sort of bonkers.
you know, there's issues there, but also there's some of the bullying issue too, like they didn't feel a part of the group.
The point is they're nuts. The guy, as far as we can tell, the guy in Connecticut, what does he do? His mother has these guns. She lives alone, maybe with him, maybe not. He's an adult. She wants to be safe, so she has these so-called assault weapons. Right. You and I know assault weapons are just automatics, okay? Maybe they're not automatics. Automatics are way illegal. They're semi-automatics, right? They pull the trigger. You got to keep pulling it, okay? You don't have to reload, but you got to keep pulling it. Yes, if you've got a high-capacity clip, the kind Barack wants to ban, you don't have to reload as much, but the gun can still jam. Okay.
Still jam. I mean, that's what in some of the mass murders.
In fact, people say it jams more with the high-capacity clips. Ironically, it might be safer to have a high-capacity clip where a greater likelihood of jamming, you know, than having a low-capacity clip that doesn't jam, but you have to reload. I don't know.
But
the point is,
count on that?
Well, here's the point. And tell me if I'm wrong. The guy was crazy, okay? He took the guns from his mother, he shot her, he walked in, we don't know his motive, maybe he had trouble at that school, his mother taught at that school, but the guy is frickin' crazy, right? You're not gonna do that, I'm not gonna do it. You know, our floor director, Angelica's not gonna do it, none of the people working in my control room. You could take all the guns away from us. You could take it away from you, you could take it away from your husband, I don't know him, but he's not gonna do this stuff. Okay,
I would
you could
like
do
to
background checks to make sure Robin Kelly, you're okay, Debbie Halverson's okay, the guy working for you is okay. You could do all of that, right? It's not going to do anything. Jonathan Blair, who's sitting over there, and he's your aide, I can use his name, he's a campaign consultant, he's a good guy, but he got you here, okay? I know Jonathan, you could do all the background checks, I'm sure he'd pass. The point is, Jonathan is not the problem. Robin Kelly's not the problem. It's the people who are crazy.
But I don't just think it's people who are crazy, because I've worked not only around the gun issue, but the anti-violence issue with domestic violence.
No, but
with
keep it,
child
I'm just
abuse.
saying,
No.
keep it to the mass killings for a
Right,
moment. We'll get
okay.
to the other. Mass killings, mostly people who are bonkers, right?
I'm not going to call them bonkers. They have mental illness.
Well, they have more than just mental illness. They're seriously compromised mentally. How do we want to say it? They're mentally challenged. They are bonkers. Why would you use that word? The guy's freaking crazy, okay?
So I'm not
You think some
comfortable
guy can
using
walk in and kill 28 people and he's like, what, mildly disturbed or something?
But you know, part of the issue also is that he obviously had problems, and not just recently, and his mom knew that he has problems, but even though she knew he had problems, she still took him to the gun range. So gun owners have to be more responsible too.
And
those
parents should have an
she was a
incentive.
parent and a gun owner.
If he's a parent and a gun owner, the kid's an adult. I don't know if, was he living in the home?
I can't.
He's not a minor though.
No, but
The point is, she feels I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but apparently she felt little or no responsibility, no incentive to find, as far as I know, something that would get this kid under control. Some people say she tried, she did this and that. Maybe, maybe not. But most of these cases, the people who know the bonkers people best, the few friends they have, the few relatives, they don't do anything, okay? I don't know what, you used to be a lawyer, not a lawyer, you were a state rep. You were making laws, right?
Right.
Okay, so what did you ever do when you were in the Illinois legislature to try to deal with this? Can you design laws? Because I understood 4 or 5 years ago, we were thinking about it after NIU, right? That kid was kind of crazy. Want to kill, what, 5 or 6 at Northern Illinois University?
I thought it was 11 or 12.
Maybe it was 11 or 12, but the point is, he was probably bonkers. And so the legislature started looking at the law and said, can this guy get a gun? How would we come up with a law that would maybe prevent him from getting guns, maybe even require his psychiatrist, if he had one, to turn him in? Those are tough issues. Right. You want to encourage people to see psychiatrists if they need help, or psychologists. But on the other hand, if those people hear that this person's about to become dangerous to society, they should have an obligation to report, right?
Well, when I was in the legislature, my first piece of legislation dealt with store purchases of guns, so that people who could legitimately have guns would face stiffer penalties for buying guns for people who could not have guns. So that was actually the first piece of legislation that I passed. So this issue of gun safety and stopping the violence.
People who could what?
Legally buy guns, would buy guns for someone who could not have a gun. So there were stiffer penalties on the person buying the gun, because they knowingly purchased guns for people who...
so-called straw purchasers. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So you had penalties, stiff penalties, for somebody who goes in, they can pass the background check, and then they turn around and sell it. Maybe make them, it's like a felony murder rule. You know the felony murder rule? If you murder somebody while you're committing a felony, you can be tried for murder, okay? Even though you weren't intending to murder, you were intending to commit the felony, right? So maybe we have a rule, if you're a straw purchaser, you're liable for the murder that the person commits. Do we have that on the books?
I'm not aware
Well, maybe
of
we
that.
should. Maybe we, see, this is the point. This is the point. This is what people want to know. What did you do in the state legislature? What do you wish you had done? And what would you do in Congress? Should we be doing that? Should we be trying to ratchet up substantially these penalties for people who are straw purchasers? That would be good, right?
Well, I think we should do, as I said, a combination of things. That's one idea with the store purchases, but I think the background checks is still very important. Even NRA members, most NRA members agree with the universal background check. It's just the lobbyists in the executive branch don't agree with that.
And I agree, because if nothing else, the background checks, I think, if they're not so substantial that they don't prevent good guys from getting guns, we don't want to do that. We want to allow people, we have, what do we do with that? Okay, we have this thing, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, combo, okay, right here. Constitution of the United States, Second Amendment, right? What does the Second Amendment say?
that people have a right to bear arms.
And as interpreted by the U.S. Supreme Court recently, to self-defense, right? So Mayor Daley, both Mayor Daleys, certainly the modern Mayor Daley, he thought it was fine and dandy that he had people all around him who had guns. They could protect him. Okay, maybe he had a somewhat higher danger. I don't know, really. I don't think a lot of people are going after Mayor Daley. But you know, a person sitting in his home in Englewood, you know Englewood, you know the West Side, the relatively unsafe areas of Chicago. They might want to have a gun in their home to protect themselves. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, I have relatives that are police officers, hunters, and
What about a guy
that
or a
really
woman
own
who
a
just
gun.
wants to be safe? If you're in a relatively unsafe area, and many, not all, but many portions of the South Side and West Side of Chicago qualify, they are certainly less safe than the North Shore, right?
It appears so by
And in
the
those
rate of crime.
unsafe areas, shouldn't that person who's a resident of that area, if the police can't protect them, and God knows they can't, shouldn't they be allowed to own a gun in their home?
The thing is, we have all this gun violence, do we want more and more and more guns? Or suppose someone doesn't want a gun in their home? I don't want a gun.
Well, you don't have to. The point is, does this document say, the Constitution of the United States, if you want to possess a gun in your home, you can, as interpreted by the U.S. Supreme Court? Does it say that?
Apparently so.
Apparently it does. But as a policy, you're not sure that's such a good policy, putting
Well,
the
I don't
Constitution
think
aside.
more and more and more guns. So if you're the person without the gun,
Okay.
you know, what does that mean? I don't think more and more and more guns.
Well, there are 200 million guns in the country, roughly. Maybe some people say 300 million. And we're not likely, you wouldn't favor confiscating guns, would you?
What do you mean confiscate?
Well, we could have the police say, we're coming to get your guns. Say the Constitution permitted it. It doesn't. But say the Constitution, we didn't have a Second Amendment, and as a matter of policy, somebody like Mayor Daley or Mayor Rahm Emanuel, they don't really believe you should have guns. We'd like to ask Rahm about that sometime, but I guess I've been banned from his press conference or something. They can't
Well, there are
let me know.
people that use their guns for hunting and things like that. I don't think
but
they're
what if-
trying to ban those guns.
Even if you just wanted to protect yourself, don't you think, and you're one of the 200 million gun holders, there are some people, I guess, in this country who think if the Constitution permitted it, we should go out and round up as many guns from the good people as well as the bad people. Are you one of those? Would you agree with that?
No, if you legally have your gun and you are doing the correct thing with your gun, I'm not opposed to guns.
Okay.
It's just that I feel like enough is enough is enough. And I've spent a lot of time with a lot of the parents who lost their children, and they're tired of the excuses.
And they want to get the gun. You're saying they would like to see fewer guns rather than more guns.
They want to see
Good
a
guys
lot
or
of
bad
things.
guys?
They want to see guns registered. They want to see background checks. They want to see ban of assault weapons. I mean, if you were speaking to one of them and you could feel their pain, or if it was one of your children, or not even a child, one of your relatives that lost their lives senselessly, and it's not always gangs.
Let me just throw one thing, and we'll go to Chicago, and then we'll go to jobs, because I don't want to do too much of the show on this, but it's an important issue. So if I'm a parent in Connecticut of one of the victims, one of the kids who was in first grade, who was shot and killed, and I heard that some of the teachers there they were heroic, they tried to stop this guy. And you know what? They held up their hands because there was a gun-free zone, so they couldn't have a gun legally in that school. And if somebody saw this guy, I think he broke in. I don't think he came in the front way. If somebody had a good communication system and said, there's a guy who just broke in, we need somebody with a gun, and there was somebody in that school, and he had a gun, or she had a gun legally, and she knew how to use it, she might have been able to do more than hold up her hands. She could have taken that gun and bam, bam, he's dead.
Maybe.
And I'll tell you, if I was a parent in that school, I would want to know why there wasn't somebody like that who could stop it, because I wouldn't be happy to hear the best the school could do was hold up their hands and stop bullets.
But that's not what their parents are saying, though.
Well, I don't know. I haven't talked to all the parents. Have you? I know what the media are saying.
They did a press conference, and that's not what they're saying.
Let's do it quickly on Chicago, because Chicago's in your district, okay?
Yeah.
Actually, what is in the
Portion.
2nd Congressional District? Give us a brief overview.
53rd in Cornell to the south suburbs to Will and Kankakee counties. Will and Kankakee are about 11% of the district. Chicago's 34% of the district, but the lion's share is in the south suburbs.
And you know this area. You were a state rep in this area,
In
right?
the south suburbs, correct.
You represented 100,000 of the 700,000 or so in the 2nd Congressional District.
105 of the
Okay.
600, right.
Okay. And And you were the chief of staff for Lexi Janulius when he was state treasurer. You were the first African-American chief of staff for a state constitutional officer.
Yes.
First African-American female chief of staff.
Right.
You were then chief of staff for Tony Prickwinkle.
Not chief of staff, chief administrative officer.
You've held a lot of important positions. You've dealt with a lot of important issues, okay? You know something about legislating. You know something about executing the laws, okay? And so you have a feel for Chicago. We are having, since Rahm Emanuel has come here and become mayor, remember he wanted to do three main things. He was going to do something about public safety, better finances, and I think better education. Three major things. Has he done any of those? He's been there for a year and a half, hasn't he?
I think he's trying.
We don't. This is not grade school. We don't give you an A for effort. I said, has he done anything on those three major issues that say, by golly, he's done a damn good job?
Yes, I think he's trying.
What has he done to safety?
Well,
Tell me what he's done for safety to make it much better.
Well, he brought in a new chief. I mean, he's not my mayor, but he brought in a new chief.
You like Chief McCarthy?
Yeah, I think he's.
You think he's made it safer? Because killings are up. I mean, they're up in January, way up. Okay?
Well, actually,
murders are not up in January.
From what he said, they went up in January, but they have been going down.
Yeah, maybe.
According to the statistics.
Right. If so, ever so slightly, we're still like the murder capital of the country, right?
Appears.
We got gun control up the kazoo. So what would you do? What would you say to the people who live in Chicago in that portion of the 2nd Congressional District? And maybe other portions where there may be less safe areas, okay? It's all not the North Shore in the 2nd Congressional District. What would you say as a congresswoman that you would do to help make things a little safer for them as a congresswoman?
First, I just want to say, killings happen all over. I know there's a proliferation in some of the areas, but also just what I've said, I agree with what the president wants to do, banning the assault weapons, universal background checks.
So you would pass that package. You would vote to support
that.
But
also, I think it does really take a village. We need more jobs. We need after-school activities for our young people. Our young people want jobs, and we need access to mental health or a better reporting system if people are aware, that someone might be a danger to themselves or someone else.
All right, so let's see if we can get the list of the candidates, the certain select 2nd Congressional District Democratic primary candidates. Here we are. So Robin Kelly's right on the top of the list. One reason why Robin's on the top of the list is there's supposedly 4 top runners there, and they would be Debbie Halverson, Senator Toy Hutchinson, Alderman Beal, and Robin Kelly. But you know what? We've tried to get the other 3 here, and they've shown really absolutely no interest in communicating with you, our viewers, which includes all of Chicago, and we hope a good part of the 2nd Congressional District if we can place those tape there. So you deserve a lot of credit for coming here, not to communicate with me, but to communicate with the viewers across the 2nd Congressional District.
I think it's important to get my message out.
Right, because on the issue of guns, do you have a sense of how you differ from Halverson, from Beal, from Hutchinson? Have they been out there talking and say, here's the 4 things I would do, here's how I would answer Jeff's questions? Have they been doing that? I'm just wondering.
Well, the difference between the 2 women they are NRA A-rated and I am NRA F-rated.
The 2 other women.
The
that
2
would
other
be
women
Halverson and
Hutchinson.
It's interesting because that ad by Mayor Bloomberg or his Superfund group goes after Debbie Halverson, but leaves Hutchinson untouched. And what I've heard is what you say, NRA ratings, they're about the same, right?
Right. I think they're going after Debbie Halverson's federal record, and Hutchinson doesn't have a federal record.
But she has a state record,
right.
and they're leaving that
very
alone.
Similar in their beliefs.
So those folks are A-rated by the National Rifle Association. You're F-rated.
Right.
And you're proud of that.
Very proud.
Because in your view, that means you're stronger on gun control than these 2 women are, okay?
Oh, I support gun safety.
And we would say, if Hutchinson agreed to come on, or even like with Beal, I can't even say, I'll bring my camera down there and I'll interview Alderman Beal right there. You don't have to come all the way up to Skokie as you have done. And they said, well, we've got your request. Okay, well, get back to me sometime before, I don't know, next November or something. So that's one difference that you would highlight between you and Halverson and Hutchinson. And Alderman Beal, we don't really know because, he's got a publicity person at the Publicity Works who basically, she's talking for him, right? Or does Beal?
I have no idea.
We don't know what Beal's views are, right? He's only been an alderman for 14 years. Wouldn't you think we'd know about guns, right? So you come up, Alderman Beal, someday and you tell me, okay? Tell me when you're ready for me to come over and interview you. It's kind of laughable that a person wanted to be congressman, represent 700,000 people, but they can't, handle questions from a little old local access guy. Really? You think?
You must be scary.
I don't know. Let's go over to education.
Okay.
It's not a federal issue in the sense that it's controlled by the feds, but they do have an impact, and it is an important issue throughout the 2nd Congressional District. Let's just spend a few minutes.
Okay.
What do you think you could do to improve the quality of education? What would you like to, if you're talking to the voters, forget me, talking to the voters across the 2nd Congressional District, let's start with the schools that weren't performing so well. Chicago Public Schools, I know it's just a small part of your district, but generally it's well known that 80% of the black kids in 4th grade are not reading at grade level. Okay. Should we do something about that? Could we?
Of course.
Could we do something
Well,
about
one thing, like you said, it's a big state issue, but it's unfortunate that it seems like your zip code dictates your education, and that should not be the case. And I think that funding is an issue.
Although we fund $15,000 per kid per year in the CPS, Chicago Public Schools. Not as much as New Trier, but not as much less as you would think. We pay the teachers their $70,000, that's the median salary for 8 months worth of work. If you annualize that, that's $100,000 a year. I think we're paying them enough. I just don't think we're getting enough. I mean, they got a tough job.
They do, because
But let's give a little
on-
competition. Would you like to see charter schools? We have some. We have like 30 or 40,000 students.
I'm more of a proponent of improving public schools.
So you want to do that more than
right,
charter schools?
because
Okay.
I have educators in my family, and what they've reported to me that in 83% of the cases, charter schools are not better than public schools. I think we need to improve the schools that we have, and
But they say they're not better than, charter schools are not better than public?
83% of the cases.
Yeah,
right.
but did you ever see this book? You ever heard of Herb Wahlberg? He wrote a book called School Choice, The Findings. It summarizes studies that, not done by him, but by others, of charter schools, of school vouchers, up through 2007.
Right.
He finds them outperforming traditional public schools a lot. Would you like a copy of that?
Sure.
All right, take a look at that. Show your friends who are the educators. Because I don't think the evidence shows that. We're not going to debate that. But that's your feeling, is that the way to go is improve public schools. And
Most kids go to public
No,
schools,
but
yes.
charter schools are public schools. They're just not traditional public schools. They are financed by the budget of the CPS. Okay, in large part.
But I feel like if we change public schools, I would like to, we've been teaching, like we have the same hours from years and years and years. And I mean, there are other things that we can do in public schools, like vocational education, like we used to do. But I just feel like we have public schools, we have good teachers. But teachers have to deal with, if a child comes to school hungry, they're more concerned about the child is hungry. They're not paying attention to maybe what the teacher is teaching, and I do
So we have
feel
to feed
like,
them better. Because we
Well,
have
I
all
mean, I
sorts
feel
of,
like
actually, we do have
ask
federal
the
programs.
teachers
We
to
have
do-
federal programs that do
Right.
that give them breakfast if they can show they need it. They give them lunch. So we're doing that.
But
all
teachers
right?
play a multitude of roles, not just teachers.
All right, but so you're not so hot on charter schools, school vouchers even less so, because school vouchers would say, give this person a voucher, like we give food stamps to people who don't have sufficient food. We don't build groceries and say, come to the government grocery. That's what we do with public schools. So I'm not saying don't help these people, give them financing of education. So some people say, take the $15,000 we spend on the kids, give them a school voucher, like we could give them a food stamp. It's an education stamp. And if they want to take the $15,000 voucher and go to the private school of their choice, charter or otherwise, they go. If they don't, they stay in the public school. Would you like to empower those 80% of the parents in 4th grade who have their kids not learning how to read at grade level?
I'd rather use that money and find out why
So
the
you don't
young
favor
children-
vouchers? You don't favor
No,
vouchers?
I'm not a
All right,
proponent
so
of that. You're going to give me another book?
Yeah, this is a whole reading book. Milton Friedman, you know this guy? Milton Friedman, Capitalism and Freedom. Would you like to take a look? Because this book was first published 50 years ago in '62, and there's a whole chapter there on school vouchers.
Okay.
Okay? And he probably came up with it 7 years earlier. So let's go over to jobs. We've got to get to jobs. Because that's, actually, you had one of your competitors on here, Patrick Brutus. Do you know him?
I don't know him.
Okay, but you said the three most important issues in the 2nd Congressional District: economic development, jobs, and education. Did he get it right?
I think, well, yeah, but I also think gun safety is
Okay, so on gun safety,
very,
we've
very
talked about
important
gun
too.
safety. Let's throw in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the show, economic development and jobs. You agree?
There's-
Important issues.
right, definitely.
You know something about that. You know a lot about that. Again, folks, Robin and I go back and forth. That's my job. My job here is to take the contrarian point of view. I'm not running for office, she is. But one thing you ought to remember here, this young lady, Robin Kelly, and by that I mean it in a positive way, she looks very young, but she's got a tremendous amount of experience on the state level as a state legislator, working in the treasurer's office, finance. You have a bachelor's from Bradley, a master's from Bradley, PhD from NIU.
Right.
This is a well-educated person, so we're having a little fun, because I'd like to have a fun debating these issues. But again, remember, who is here? Debbie Halverson is not here. Maybe, she said bring your camera down, so maybe if she'll let me come down to Steger or wherever she hangs out, I can, get a show up with her. Alderman Beal, not so much, because they don't even want me coming down with the camera. Toy Hutchinson, I spoke with the guy and he didn't come back. So you know who deserves a lot of credit? I can't tell you who to vote for, okay? And it's not a matter of do Robin and I agree? Because I'm not running, okay? You're trying to find, if you're a Democrat, the best nominee, because it might be a tough general election. We've had a Republican or two here, might be tough. So I just got to say this again. Think about it. Who's the best person? Who will come here on public affairs and give you her views? She deserves a lot of credit for that. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you.
And let's wrap it up with 2 or 3 minutes with you telling us about economic development and jobs.
Definitely, there are not enough businesses, jobs, or people are underemployed in the 2nd Congressional District. I am a proponent of the 3rd Airport. I've been, before I was elected, learned a lot about it when I worked for the Village of Matheson. That could be a true economic engine for the area, but of course we shouldn't put all our eggs in one basket. I also am a proponent of helping small
Would you
business.
say, but the 3rd airport being Peatone?
Yes,
So you favor Peatone?
yes, I
Do
do.
you think Congressman Jackson was doing the right thing when he was pushing for the last 17 years or so for a 3rd airport in Peatone?
Yes, I believe he was doing the right thing.
Do you think you can get that done?
Yes, it's a governance issue, and as the Congresswoman, I would bring all parties together and work with the state and local officials to decide the governance issue, to get to cooperation and everyone on the same page, and then I think we can, in honor of Super Bowl Sunday, cross the finish line.
So what's your pick? People will see this after. Are you going with the 49ers or are you going with the Ravens? Who's going to win that game?
I like the 49ers.
All right. What do you predict? What's the score?
Oh, wow, that's hard. I'll say 32-28. I'm just
There you go.
guessing.
You heard it here. So watch this on YouTube.com. So you won't see it in Chicago for 2 weeks. We're taping it on February 3rd. But maybe she got it right. 32-28 49ers, right?
We'll see.
Okay. So you go for the Peatone Airport. What else do you do to get some jobs up on that scoreboard in the 2nd Congressional District?
Also, I think we need to do more to help small business. I came from a small business background. My family owned a mom and pop grocery store, and I think we need to do more as far as access to capital. But I know we talked about guns and safety, but that's the thing, we have to make sure we're providing a safe community that businesses want to come
That's
and
right.
want to stay. That's part of the issue.
Somebody, one of our guests here, talked about easy peasy. You know that phrase, easy peasy? Safety, good neighborhoods, and so forth. So to attract jobs, if you like employees, you have to like employers, right?
We have to attract businesses, or we have to help small business stay, and then they'll hire people in the neighborhood.
Barack Obama kept money of the Bush tax cuts, 98%. Is he on the right track? Low taxes, a way on the federal level, a way to stimulate people to invest, to work, save, and invest. Does that create jobs? Low taxes.
I think that
Low
people
tax
should
rates,
pay
I should
their,
say.
I think that people, corporations and the wealthy should pay their fair share. And I also think that we have to put money in middle income or